is time once again for another G1 CLIMAX 33 recap show right here on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes or on your favorite podcast application. Hello, I'm Warren Hayes, and it is August 10. We had our quarterfinals happen today. The die has further been cast. If it was cast yesterday, it is further cast. It is most cast. Not most cast yet, but it continues to be casted. So we move on here and we get into the semifinals mood. But before we get into that, we are going to talk about today's results, break down the matches, so on and so forth. Let's do the little housekeeping, as we usually do. Likes and subscribes on YouTube. I wouldn't talk about it so much if it didn't have an impact, because it really does. So if you wouldn't mind, that would be, a kind gesture, a gesture of kindness, a kind gesture of kindness to put out there and help the podcast grow. And it's the same thing with reviews and ratings over on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It helps out tremendously. And I thank you in advance for your support there. And since we're on the topic of housekeeping, yesterday, I believe it was yesterday, I was talking about how we had like three recap shows left. Today for the quarterfinals, Saturday for the semis, and then I was saying, on Sunday we'll do the finals, and then we'll do a proper recap. But you know what? Come to think of it, I think I'm going to do the review of the finals and a proper review, not as much a review, but a post-mortem, final thoughts, recap thoughts. I'm going to do that on the Mr. Warren Hayes show on Tuesday, as opposed to stuffing that in on Sunday. Why? Well, because it's good content for the podcast. And if you've never listened to the Mr. Warren Hayes show podcast, you've been jumping onto these, but maybe not the main show. Well, maybe that'll be a good idea for you a good incentive for you to jump in and give it a try. You can, watch us live on, you can watch me live. I record it live on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. or, everything will be on demand the next day. So there you go. So we can do either or. You can do either or. Come in live, watch the next day. But regardless, that's what we're going to do. So a slight little programming change. Tomorrow will be the last day we get together to recap on a daily basis. And we'll wrap everything up on the Mr. Warren Hayes show proper on Tuesday. But now that we got that out of the way, let's get right into the results of the thing. Sure. Evil defeated SANADA. Kazuchika Okada defeated Zack Sabre Jr. Will Ospreay defeated Dave Finlay, and Tetsuya Naito defeated Hikuleo. Let's get right into it. Let's start with the first match of the night, which was Hikuleo versus Tetsuya Naito. The order of matches that was on New Japan 1972 yesterday, when I was closing up the show, was not final, clearly, because they had this match in the main event. So they were still shuffling things around. We'll probably shuffle things around for tomorrow as well. We'll see how things go. And just to be clear, I'm not forgetting about the undercard matches. We're just not reviewing them. We're just not talking. We're focused on the G1 here. We're focused on the blocks, the matches, the playoffs here. Chris Charlton pointed it out very specifically, as during introductions, and I, just want to reiterate it because it is a point that I brought up here. This is what he was talking about. When he was talking about Hikuleo, he was talking about, he's the biggest, right? The biggest opponent in the playoffs right now, the strongest. He's coming in having won his last four, and as I pointed it out, just like Gedo likes it. Gedo likes his monsters to come in to get to get on a winning streak, to suddenly become like this unstoppable force going up against Tetsuya Naito, so that Tetsuya Naito can continue doing big babyface things and overcoming all the odds, so on and so forth. So I know a lot of people were really fucking mad that Hikuleo was qualified for the playoffs, but ultimately, when you look at Gedo's history and how he likes to position his players throughout his G1s, there's always this one big guy, this big monster who gets this rush, comes across as invincible, and this is what he wanted here. See, and Charlton made a point of it. He's won his last 4 matches. He's the strongest. He's the biggest. That's the story of Hikuleo going forward. And who benefits from the story? Tetsuya Naito, who comes in and establishes himself as a maybe it's hard to call Tetsuya Naito an underdog, but maybe he's fighting a little from beneath. Maybe the obstacle he has to overcome is a little stronger than it should be. And this is the story of the match. In fact, I mean, this match was laid out as your classic, big man versus smaller man, because you don't want to call Tetsuya Naito a little man. You really don't. But the idea here of Hikuleo using his strength and Naito using his brains. Naito usually goes straight for the neck, but in this case, he worked at the legs and then eventually started working the neck here. And he's dominant for a good part of the match until Hikuleo pushes forward, strings some power offense together. He starts pummeling Naito. There's a bit of a miscommunication on a spot, and I think it was on the spinning power slam spot, which is a shame. But after that, Naito goes for the short arm elbows to the neck. He eats a last ride by Hikuleo. Naito runs into the spinning power slam, but reverses out of the choke slam with the DDT. There's another attempt to the choke slam, which Naito reverses into a slop drop, and then gets Hikuleo back on his feet for the Destino proper, for the win. Thank God. Because you know what? I was into it. Because here's the other thing that this 4-match winning streak was successful in doing, and that was putting over like the spinning power slam, choke slam combo as the wombo combo. You're like, oh shit, you're doomed. Not unlike the landslide Rainmaker dealio. That's how it is. You just have the setup move and the big one. And the last 4 matches, Hikuleo's been picking up guys and choke slamming them down a little out of nowhere, on one occasion. So I was nervous at this point, and they were leaning into it a lot. It was like, oh, he missed it the first time. Oh, he missed it the second time. Oh no, here he goes again. But it worked, and the audience was into it too. They bought into it. Might not be the greatest match of the tournament. I thought it was good. I thought it was a good, solid match, and I think the drama in the audience helped elevate it a little bit. I thought it was much better than any right it had to. Yeah. And Hikuleo was really leaning into his role. You could feel him getting a little more confident here. It's a shame there was a bit of a miscomm that a spot was blown, but other than that, I enjoyed this tremendously, and I was into it. And I was like, and I was buying into it. I was like, can you imagine? Do you believe this? This is what's going to happen, right? Great match. Hang on, pump the brake. Very good match. Very good. I really liked it. Then we had Will Ospreay defeated Dave Finlay. I enjoyed this tremendously. I thought this as well was very good, with a few callbacks from a previous encounter. Bullet Club was involved here, where the War Dogs were there with Dave Finlay, and the War Dogs, but Will Ospreay came out with Jeff Cobb and Great O'Khan, so there was they neutralized each other until Dave Finlay sets up a table on the ground, on the floor, and Jeff Cobb comes in and is like, nah, fuck this shit, and he tosses the table away. And then that gets him into trouble with Finlay, because Finlay spits on him. He shoves Finlay down. The referee sees it, doesn't call the DQ, but tosses Jeff Cobb. And while he's tossing Jeff Cobb, the War Dogs get involved. So, it's not a completely interference clear match here, but we're getting the most egregious parts out of the way early here. Well, not necessarily early, but we're setting a table here. Let's put it that way. So Dave Finlay gets firmly in control at this point here. There was this great counter that Finlay did to an Oscutter as he runs right behind Will as Will goes to springboard, and Finlay jumps on the cables on the ropes with him and does like a side Russian. Can't call it a leg sweep, but that was kind of what it was fantastic. Spanish fly by Will Ospreay, a spear by Finlay, and we get a Dominator as well by Finlay, who then puts the table back into play. He eats a Nos Cutter on the apron, though. Those always look fantastic, and I think they can't feel good for Will. If you do those types of moves on the apron, you're always on the losing side, aren't you? Ospreay sets Finlay on the table, but Bullet Club pull him off, and then Will Ospreay power bombs Dave Finlay through the table. Finlay beats the count, eats a missile dropkick as soon as he comes in. I love it when Ospreay does that. An Oscutter follows. He goes for the leap of faith, but Dave Finlay has the referee on top of him, and since the leap of faith is a move that you do with your back turned to your opponent, Will didn't see it, so the referee eats shit. The good thing here is that this referee did not return for the rest of the match. This is a big finisher for Will, so the referee was effectively dead forever. We'll never see him again. The War Dogs attack. Great-O-Khan steps in. And, I like this because, look, the heat was there. People were into it. And it made sense. So, the War Dogs are putting the boots to Ospreay. Great-O-Khan comes in to sort of try to fight them off. He gets overwhelmed. And he does the most glorious thing. And I love this type of shit. Where he realizes he can't overcome these two maniacs. So what does he do? He lies on top of Will to protect him. He just drapes his body over Will. He's like, well, if I can't protect you, my way, I'll protect you this way from getting too hurt. And I thought that was outstanding. Jeff Cobb runs in. Don't forget the referee's dead. So they do some great double team. It's some hot stuff. For real, as far as, interference spots and happen, it was good. It was well thought out, told a story, and the crowd was into it. Keep that in mind. As before, just keep that in mind. The crowd was into it. Jeff Cobb runs in, all sorts of stuff. There's the shillelagh gets in play, doesn't really matter. Super hot finish where Will Ospreay avoids the Into Oblivion and gets the Stormbreaker for the win. I love the finish. It was the final minutes of this match were outstanding. This was a great match. Will Ospreay moves forward. Great match. So Ospreay and Naito are going to be in the semifinals. Naito's probably going to get back his will on Ospreay and keep moving forward to that big championship in the Dome. I'm still convinced. Been telling y'all from the start. Then we got SANADA versus Evil. And I absolutely hated this match. And I will understand that the work was fair. It was all right. Nothing was blown. But I hated this match so much. And it's maybe not for the reasons you believe. A couple of nights ago, Evil won a match against Shingo Takagi where there was all sorts of interference and nonsense. And I will tell you, 80% of the time, the House of Torture stuff will go over my head. Then there's a 10% where I'll find it entertaining. Then there'll be a 5% where it really annoys me. And then we're going to fall into the 5% where I hate it to pieces. But then this is compounded tonight, what we saw, by the fact that Not even the world champion made this match good. It's not even a question of the interference. The interference just made things worse because you know what? This match was boring. Was boring with a capital B. And that is unacceptable. I as a viewer of the G1 in the semifinals of the playoffs with the world champion involved, I do not think a boring match is acceptable. If I got pissed off only because of the interference, that's one thing, but that's not even the case here. And it's not even all on Evil, who a couple of nights ago I thought had a frustrating but entertaining win, and the audience was into it. Just before here, I just told you, remember, I'm telling you, the crowd was into it with the War Dogs and the United Empire. They were all into it. This crowd was just booing. They felt out of energy. It sucked. I don't even care to break this shit down. I have my notes here. One of them says, "Who gives a fuck?" Laden with interference, but that's not, if it wasn't boring. And I put more of the fact that this was dull as dirt on SANADA than anything else. I believe I am off the SANADA train if I ever was on it to begin with. I'm not even getting on. I think whatever they're trying out with this guy isn't working. I don't think he is a representative champion of what we expect out of New Japan. He was supposed to be reinvigorated, trying out new things. But here he is, fucking doing paradise locks and fucking skull ends. He has an energetic new finish, Warren, called the Deadfall. Yeah, but he's still doing his dull as dirt offense that never got off the ground. And this audience had no connection. There was nothing for them to get behind. They were booing out of principle because the heels are doing nasty shit. I hated this match. It might not be the match I rate lowest, but it is absolutely the match that I loathed the most out of this entire tournament because it did the carnal sin of pro wrestling, which is to be boring. The fucking G1. And then on top of that, Evil moves forward. So now, roll of the dice against Okada. Who the fuck knows what's going to happen in the semifinals now? Interference, doop, doop, doop. I have faith in Kazuchika Okada to make this interesting, though, which is not the case that with SANADA. I don't have faith in SANADA at all. They gave it, look, congratulations on trying something out. You gave it the old college try, Gato, when it comes to SANADA, but that dude has to drop the title on the way to Wrestle Kingdom. But then again, if we want to go down this route where SANADA is going to drop the title on the way to Wrestle Kingdom, well, right now, Evil has a claim. Are we doing SANADA and Evil again in October? And is Evil going to end up in the main event at the Tokyo Dome? Hit the bricks. The fuck is this shit? Hated it. Thankfully, we had two fucking pros. Two world-class athletes. Two guys who, when it's time, will pull out the big-time match. Kazuchika Okada and Zack Sabre Jr. to wrap this shit up. To palate cleanse. To make us forget. To take us back down a road that we want to walk on. Guide us back. Like a GPS of love. Yes, that's right. A GPS of love. I love this match. I thought it was fantastic. Great. close to excellent on top of that. Just more outstanding stuff from Zack Sabre Jr. as, again, commentary said, needs to get over his final boss, Kazuchika Okada. This would not be the night. And Okada, ornery Okada, showed his head, showed his face once again. He just wants to win. He's fed up of being tossed aside, of all these youngins coming up. And he's in no mood for Zack Sabre Jr. tonight. And Zack is going violent on him, and he's twisting him, he's stretching him. Tremendous high angle German suplex by Zack Sabre Jr. At the same, a little later in the match. Okada responds with a, he responds, but he ends up in a Cobra twist. And boy, oh boy, did Zack Sabre Jr. want to end this match in a Cobra twist. And he continues to stretch him. Zack Sabre Jr. strikes. Okada tries to fight back, but he's got no mustard in his strikes. You remember that spot? That was fantastic. Zack was all over him so hard, so quickly. Okada was trying to strike back at him and he had nothing to give. But Okada lands a drop kick, hits the landslide, Rainmaker. No, it's dodged. Reversed into a Zack driver, but Zack can't follow up on the pin. So they start striking each other on their knees. Rainmaker by Zack Sabre Jr. Fantastic final stretch of near falls and open hand strikes. These guys are getting desperate. The adrenaline's kicking in. Rainmaker's avoided, back into a Cobra twist. But Okada sneaks out of that, lands the Cobra Explosion, and the Rainmaker for the win. One day, Zack Sabre Jr. is going to get his big final boss win. Him too. Was just not going to happen in this G1. Well, what a tremendous main event. That has me coming in here with a smile nonetheless. Made me forget the nonsense that happened before. This was a fantastic way to close off the show with two world-class pro wrestlers doing what they do best. And you gotta love, I love this version of Okada. I love this version of Okada. And, even in commentary, they started, recapping the history, of Okada, how he was like the emperor of New Japan until Kenny Omega defeated him. Then he became, little Kazu, red balloons, red hair, not taking pro wrestling seriously, right? And then 50th anniversary Okada, where it's like, let's all band together. Let's all do this together. Come on, you guys. We can beat this. Now he's not there anymore. Now it's like, no. Now it's all about Okada. It's all about Kazuchika Okada. It's about me. You want to talk about reinventions? You want to talk about keeping... And don't forget, in the meantime, there was my back is herniated Kazuchika Okada. Remember that one? That'll be an underappreciated version of Okada, where he had us all believing that he had that his back was herniated and that he was in pain. You remember that one? So you want to talk about reinvention and keeping yourself fresh and keeping your in-ring interesting and how you present yourself, your persona. I don't think Okada's going to get as much credit for what he's been doing for the past 5 years at this point. Every year it's something a little different, a little different, a little something, at least a little something off course than what he had been doing. It's fantastic. Look, I thought this was a very good show, at least for the blocks, right? I can't, again, we're not speaking for the rest of the show, but if you want to just focus in on the blocks, my recommendations is everything except Evil versus SANADA. Unless you're some kind of weird, you're some kind of weird pervert. Stay away. Or maybe you just want to see, maybe Warren's exaggerating. And maybe I am. Maybe I am a little grumpy. Maybe I myself am a little ornery. Because listen, there's a reason why I watch New Japan Pro Wrestling. There's a reason that I watch it as opposed to North American Pro Wrestling. Because it gives me something that I don't get here. And vice versa, right? So if they're giving me things, if Japanese wrestling starts giving me things from North American wrestling, and on top of that, the things that I hate the most about North American wrestling, by the way, I'm not interested. That pisses me off. I'm like, well, what's left for Warren? What's in it for me? But seriously, the main event was outstanding. Finlay versus Ospreay was outstanding, and Hikuleo and Naito. You know, I wouldn't put it out as an outright recommendation. But if you have time, I give it a go. I think it shows just how much Hikuleo has evolved within this tournament. But again, I understand why a lot of people are very angry that Hikuleo made it, but I made the case, I tried going over it on the last recap as to why this is happening. So to me, it's not that big a deal. But Hikuleo, even at this point, he's putting things together. People talk about Hikuleo like he's in his 20s. The man is 32. And if he's just starting to put things together, well, because he's the younger brother of the two others of the Gorillas of Destiny. Everyone seems to think like he's like their kid, like they're, the new kid off the block. I think he's in his 20s or something. Like he's fresh out of school or whatever. He's 32. I mean, if there was ever a time to get things together, it's fucking now. It's now or never, buddy, And I still think that there's major holes in here. It's like when people say, send him to the PC so he can train. He's 32. There's a point where it's like, what you see is what you get, right? I'm off topic. Nonetheless, Naito, Hikuleo, I think it's fine. It's a good little wrestling match. And nothing egregious. Nothing that'll have you singing to the choir. Singing to the heavenly choir, maybe, but nothing great either. But absolutely, Finlay Ospreay, Okada Zack Sabre Jr. You can forget the other thing. So there you have it, folks. One more time, we get to see each other. Then we reconvene, and that is Saturday for the semifinals: Evil versus Okada, Ospreay versus Naito. That should be a good time, and that will also be the last of the daily recap shows here on the youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes channel and on your favorite podcast application. So it's a good time to subscribe if you want to make sure that you hang on to all the rest of the stuff that I do here. I would really appreciate it. So come on back whenever you want. I've got Dynamite reviews on top of that. I've got Collision reviews on their way. I've got a whole bunch of stuff, plus the Mr. Warren Hayes show this Tuesday, where I record live on demand on Wednesday. That's where we're going to recap the G1 CLIMAX 33 after the finals. So be sure to be here. Look, wherever you decide, whenever and wherever you decide to rejoin me, I'll see you next time.